All right, let's go ahead and open up the workshop at 5:11 p.m. on October the 3rd. Before I turn it over to Matt, we have got quite a bit on close tonight, as it has turned out. So let's try not to, maybe try to wrap up this workshop by 5:45 if we can. All right.
And we do have 4 recognitions tonight, a pretty packed house as well, so the sooner we can get out there, the better. I think ADF is there plus a bunch of kids. So,
Okay.
Sarah, I think, is going to do the majority of the facilitation. If I remember right from our notes, we left off, I believe, on page number 5, or excuse me, page number 7. I wanted to point out on page 5, just to reiterate, that's where it lists your goal, your beliefs, your vision, mission, performance, objective categories. We're going to do some work on that coming up from a whole board perspective. I have some ideas, and I talked to the governance committee about it recently, about how we can get some of that stuff done. So we're not skipping that. We're coming back to that eventually to make sure that this board's voice is heard in identifying your beliefs, etc. But I believe that we landed on, or we ended on page number 7, where we were going through the trustee should and should not section, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Sarah?
Yeah, I think we had just finished it, but we can certainly revisit it real quick if there's anything we missed. Y'all good? Okay. Anything else, Matt?
No, not for me on that one.
So, if you guys go to page 8, this is actually a good place to go to part B, because this is so now we're getting into our operating procedures. And so I appreciate y'all reading through. Y'all good?
Under your plate.
Oh, right here.
Thank you.
And it starts on page 8.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Instead of, just for time's sake, and also just so we can make sure we have protected time for the conversation, I appreciate y'all pre-reading this, so we did that on our own time. Did anyone have any additions or any discussion about bullets 1 through 3? So the content on page 8.
Larry, do you have any feedback on the trustee? Oh wait, what's the new trustee?
The orientation and stuff?
Yeah. Number 1.
I mean, compared to what used to be, I think I went through, it wasn't like a fire hose. It was coordinated, it was tiered. So it made it more powerful.
So, and just so every trustee knows what we did with Larry, it wasn't a sit down where everybody comes in at one time for like 10 minutes. It was, we broke it up over 3 days with Larry. We had about, I'd say, a half hour for each department, maybe a little longer for some others, where we just went over some details of everything over a 3-day period instead of trying to do it like all crammed into a half day. So it still took, it was about 3.5 to 4 hours total is what we did. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just a suggestion, at Leadership TASB, they were talking about this, and they said that the way they recommend is not only new trustees, but old trustees, current trustees, also attend those, just to kind of keep up on things and see if they might have come up with any questions. So they recommend everyone go through those trainings again if they can.
If they're able to attend.
Yeah.
So we could put, if the board wanted, we could put you on a cycle. I don't know that you would want a quorum there for,
Right.
You'd have to have it posted if it was more than 3. But we could do maybe a cycle every couple of years according to your election cycle. We could.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion, they just said they thought it was helpful to keep everybody apprised.
So I like the idea of, if we're reelected, to do it and just do because we never have more than 3 open in any one election.
Oh,
Usually,
that could be the cycle.
Yeah.
that could be the cycle.
Yeah.
I also am going to just throw out that Brooklyn and I never did that, and if it's possible for that to happen, I'm sure Brooklyn and I would make time.
We would
on our end.
That was one of, when Leanne and I gave our feedback, was how we did our orientation. Was too much, it was overwhelming. I remember the day that you took us to coffee, and that was so lovely and wonderful, but that already was
a lot.
So much to grasp. And then to have it the other way, I was still processing what you said.
Yeah.
And how many times did I make mistakes and you said, remember, we talked about, and I was like, no,
No, I
because,
don't
remember.
because we drank from a fire hose.
Yes.
that everybody in the room understood except for us. So it seemed very natural.
Yeah.
So I would love the idea.
So
Can I
you
say-
guys, oh, sorry, I have a clarifying question before we move on. You guys didn't get staff orientation?
We got maybe an hour total. I would say that it was made with all staff in the room, heads of every department, and they just went around like this.
That's what happened with
I'm
me.
this, I'm
Me
this,
too.
I'm this, I'm
Yeah.
this, and there
Yeah.
wasn't even really time for questions. It was just,
There you go.
this is
And there was
your,
That's
no
what-
name tag, no nameplate, like,
yeah,
it was a room full
lot.
of strange faces.
Correct.
So that was the format, I think that. we
That was
all
mine.
got. And that's, I think, why they reimagined like the chunks
That's
approach
awesome.
with Larry, and so I think,
Yeah.
hearing
Oh, yeah.
feedback, we just will keep that.
Yeah,
cadence.
it's different now.
So a couple things real quick on that, just for clarification. So we're looking at 1C, and that's the part that we're talking about right now, and I wanted to make sure that this is correct in your minds. This is no later than 2 weeks after the new trustee assumes the duties of the office. Seeing how we're breaking this up, is there any chance we can say 2 months? I think statutorily, according to law, it's 90 days that in the first 90 days that we have to do it. Are you okay if we adjust that beyond 2 weeks? Because 2 weeks
Oh,
is
yeah,
really
2 weeks is really short.
Especially when you
And-
come right off of the election. Say you do have somebody new, I think that's good.
And we
And-
got graduation in the middle of it all and stuff like
And we
that.
have day jobs as well.
Yeah.
So we
Oh,
would,
yeah.
we would shift C to say 2 months instead of 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay?
And I don't know that we need to codify this, or maybe we put it in the president and vice president handbook that we keep, the folder we keep. Not that we keep one, but maybe we should. Kudos to Justin and Sarah. I was not there, but I heard all about it from this guy and from those guys. The orientation you did on D sounded, it sounded like it was awesome. And that needs to be the norm going forward. I don't know if y'all want to tweak how you handled it with Larry, or Larry, if you have any feedback on how you did for D.
What we did for D this year, and is when we came, I remember when I came on the board, maybe it was y'all's experience when y'all came on the board, was you met with the president, vice president, and there was a PowerPoint that looks like it was made in about 2002.
Yes.
Yep.
And so we still have that. It has been modernized and updated except for the graphics and everything. It still looks like it was made in 2002, but the information is now current. But we also walked through the handbook page by page with Larry, which is, that was a new addition.
That was, I think this should be the guiding instrument for that orientation, and take as long as needed to get them up to speed. And it sounds like you guys did, so kudos to you guys on that. Mine was the typical buoy hog, let's see if we can get this done in 30 minutes.
Yep.
So,
Can I ask 2 more questions, please?
Absolutely.
1B, so this is about training, and I'm assuming this is candidate and new trustee training, but I know based on when I got here, there were some concerns from 2 of you last year about making sure you knew the training schedule ahead of time and stuff. Larry, have we done okay making sure you've gotten all that this year?
Oh, I'm done.
You're good though, but the communication pieces and everything, you feel like you got everything you need?
Oh, it was great. It was
Okay.
great.
I just wanted to make sure because again, that's an important piece of the puzzle, is making sure new trustees have the required trainings at the right time. And if we needed to adjust anything, wanted to make sure we took time to talk about it.
No, communication, all that's great.
And then finally, we were going backwards there. 1A, we had a very brief meeting in the boardroom when we went over for those that had filed for election, just do's and don'ts of everything. I don't know what it looked like for Leanne and Brooklyn when you ran a year ago or the year prior to that. Is there anything that you'd like us to make sure we cover in that for candidates? Again, this is when people have filed and the race is starting at that point. So is there anything that you want us to make sure we address there?
given that we have a attorney general who likes to file lawsuits, whether warranted or not, on electioneering, and we had candidates that violated electioneering this go around, I think if we could make sure we really provide concrete examples of what is and what isn't electioneering, and the risk involved, especially if they involve our employees.
Yeah.
And I will say, having known what was communicated in those meetings. I'm not quite sure how what happened, but yes, some more concrete examples couldn't hurt.
In the past, I've been a part of a district where we had a little more lengthy time, where it gave all of the candidates some more insight into the district. Just imagine it more like 45 minutes, but it gives you, these are the essential functions in the departments and stuff, so a little more information as candidates. Is that something you desire, or keep it really at the high level, just about election and stuff?
Can you, sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, so, you know, what we just talked about with Larry, how we broke it up into a few days and did some department chunks and big work of the school district. In the past, we have made sure we focused on the role of a trustee. I say this from another district, so everybody hear me on that, and I'm good with whatever. I want to make sure I hit your target. But go through the guidance about what a trustee does and make sure that we go into that in depth at that point, and then give them like a brief overview of the essential functions of the school district and the role of trustees in that. And so it's a little more of a training about what trustee does, not just what you can or can't do in election time.
And that's
So-
another thing leadership talked about, is making sure that candidates realize what they're getting into
Yeah,
and their role, you know, governance, not
Their lane,
management, yeah. But how much time it takes and the committees and 2 times a month and sometimes they don't know.
Even if it's the Venn diagram and the introduction of a trustee that we do right now at trustee talks, even if it's that simple, I think that would be a good addition.
we had used the TASB board handbook that you get when you file for elections and stuff. I think y'all are little small book, and kind of walk people through what the role of a trustee was at that. So, as long as you want some more discussion, I can talk to, I guess governance committee might be the right ones to talk about just what you might want in that. I just wanted to be sure that we were on the same page there.
Does
coming up.
one of us need to be taking notes on all this?
I got it. I'm not worried about that. I don't
I
see
also
any
have notes.
changes, and I think I can get.
Secretary.
Anything else on this page?
The D, it has 2 weeks.
Great.
So should we change that to 2 months?
Oh, no,
So-
the C was changed to 2
The
weeks.
C was changed to 2 months.
So I don't know if I would, I do think that like 2 months is too long to go without any sort of orientation
Yeah.
overview.
Yeah.
And that one is much more informal, and it just involves coordinating with 3 people, the person who won and the vice president, vice president. So
And it doesn't need to be over multiple days.
it
like
doesn't
the
have to
other
be
one.
over multiple
So
days.
leave that one at within 2 weeks.
Correct.
Are y'all good with that?
Absolutely.
Great.
Should we clarify that?
Okay. Anything else on page 8? All right, keeping it moving. Okay, now this is developing the board meeting agenda. And, trustee and citizen conduct.
I think that follows policy, right? So we're good.
The administration doesn't see any need to change any of that. I think those are all fine with us as long as, you know, so again, Justin's my point of contact in developing the board agendas. We go from there, we meet, go over them, and then we have that calendar that I think Sam's getting out tomorrow for everybody so you can see that.
And as far as if one of us needs to join on Zoom, is 4B still capturing everything? You know what I mean? If that's still capturing everything that's required?
Yes, that's correct. So just clarification on that, when you are on Zoom for meetings and stuff, we do have to be able to physically see your vote. So that's where the board president will ask you to see and raise your hand in accordance with that.
Do we need to take out that says video conferencing equipment will be provided by the district since we provide our own technology typically?
We would,
4B4.
4B4.
that's a good point.
I was just thinking that is not something that we do, because technically, if any of us are out, it's either travel and absolutely can't make it, so we're not gonna take district equipment with us, but also if we're homesick, we're not taking, we just live in a different technology age that most of us have a laptop or a phone to.
I don't care if we leave it in, because I do think that if we need to provide you something, we can provide it.
Okay.
Like, I don't have any issues with that.
Okay.
If I was out traveling for some reason and had to go in, I would use my district technology.
As long as it says it will be, not must be.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't,
thank you. That was
Yeah.
my only.
Yep.
what would you say there, Dr.
Can
Smith?
be.
Can be.
Can be,
Okay.
so will be,
Instead of must
can
have.
be.
Okay.
Or,
Yeah, okay, that works.
Anything on page 10?
Does C align with current board policy? Says 5 minutes,
That's what's in policy.
Limited to 5 minutes.
maybe it's at the discretion of the board. Okay, yeah. That matches.
Do we need to have it included in here what time they have to register by? On C1, speakers must register prior to the meeting. I don't know if we need it, I'm just asking for clarification.
We can put that in the handbook. It's in, I think it's in, I don't know if it's in policy, but that's what we've always observed, so it's fine to add it here.
Yeah.
Handbook matches the language policy.
So I don't know that it's in policy. I think it might be on your website though. We can pull that up.
Policy, it's in posted meeting, it says.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know that we need it in our handbook. This is more informational for
us.
But I'm thinking if I'm going back to a year and a half ago, if I'm brand new, having it all duplicated in the same language everywhere, versus where did I read it? Where is that time? What is, because if we are technically going off of this, it just seems easier.
Yeah, but I guess my point is it's really the board response to citizens is like how we're supposed to comport ourselves in this case, not necessarily what the rules are for the, right? This is geared towards us as the audience, not, I mean, it doesn't hurt, Brooklyn. I can go either way.
That's nothing major, I was just trying to make it cohesive.
We can definitely do it, add something in there if you want. I mean, I think current practice is by 3 o'clock for every board meeting, so if you want to add it in.
Yeah, I don't think it would hurt that.
Okay.
and on that form, do we ask for their address?
I believe we do. Priscilla, do you know that?
Because TASB was saying, or, well, not TASB, most of the districts that were there said, unless they have an address within our district, they're not allowed to speak.
That sounds like something Cassie would say, that's completely illegal.
That's interesting.
Thank you, Dennis.
In all seriousness, is you can say that anyone who doesn't have an address in the district will speak at the very end after everyone else in the district, unless it's on an agenda topic. That you could do, because we should hear from our people first.
That's just what some of them do. They don't let people speak if they're not within their district.
But that's a-
Live out of district and bus in, why, I mean,
There are people who go from district to
right.
district.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand why, but I don't want to limit, I wouldn't wanna put those kinds of
Restrictions.
negative
Yeah.
intent into this.
And I mean, I would just say that would have to be a change in policy, and we're
Yeah,
talking about
that's
the
out
handbook,
of the
so
scope
I
of
would,
this.
let's roll on.
Okay.
Let me,
Anything else on page 10? You're right, I mean, that, a lot of this page is policy anyway, so I don't see anything glaring. Okay, page 11 goes into, oh, sorry, David, did you have something?
I was gonna start on 6. Does 6 match up with our current practice? I think it does. Mr. President?
Yeah, this is our current procedure.
And Matt, I know that in our last team of 8 training, the one that we had with Warren, which was a while ago now, we did talk about school campus visits, and we're all parents, right? And many of us are parents to current students, so I just want to make sure we're all under the same understanding here. we're going under the capacity of a mom attending an order concert, right? You don't have to arrange that through you, though. If you visit a campus in the capacity of a trustee, that needs to be arranged through your office.
Ideally, we would know about it, yes.
Okay.
And we'd like to be able to just know that that's happening as a trustee, that you're out there doing that.
Well, I have no problem with that being the rule.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's good practice.
Well, that is,
I'm
Yeah.
just making sure that's.
yeah, it doesn't require arranging, it just requires notification, but it is often, if you are initiating the visit, it's, you should go through Matt and Sam. But if, we frequently will get one-off invitations to campuses and stuff in that
That's
case.
different.
That's
Yeah.
different, let him
And
know.
going to read,
Yeah.
if I was invited, that's different.
Yeah.
Totally
But if I
agree.
want to go see Bailey, because I haven't seen Bailey yet, I would go through, I would text Priscilla or Sam
And I know sometimes, and I think part of this is natural because we've had some staffing changes, like we went from Lisa to Diane to Sam and Priscilla. So inevitably, every now and then, staff might bypass the superintendent's office, and we might get an invitation to an event. I think as a courtesy, we need to make sure we have alerted Matt's office. Like, there is a big thing going on at Berry, and the board has been invited, and especially if we don't see Matt at all in the two field, we should forward that on and just say, hey, this is going on, FYI.
or have Sam put it on our board calendar.
Yeah.
I mean, that should be the general rule. If the whole board is invited to something, it should be forwarded. If it wasn't sent to the two of them,
Yeah.
it should be sent to the two of them so it can get added to our board calendar.
Right. And that's not something I think really we need to put in the handbook, but it's been happening, so I just wanted to elevate that so we could kind of touch base.
All right. I got one comment on 9.
Before we leave that real quick, I would ask if you get an invitation that's sort of like, hey, it's to the board, go ahead and send it along. CC me, or I would ask Matt's staff, like, check with me, or and maybe the officer group, I don't know, about whether or not that's something we want to add to the board calendar. Because there are a few things that we get sometimes, it's just not, they're
That's a
not
good
things
point,
that we're
yeah.
gonna
It's not just
necessarily
the-
add to the board calendar.
Can we go circle back to your thing? I know we're trying to move quick, but just real. I actually feel differently about the school visit, and I'm looking at you, Matt. So Justin, yeah,
Sorry.
we make eye contact with
That's
face.
right.
We make eye contact. I actually would prefer, if possible, to schedule my own school visits. Like, for example, let's use my kids' elementary school, just because I know their names.
Right.
Principal Anthony, I would love to come visit. I don't need a tour. I just want to come and hear more and learn more about Corey Academy. Would you help me? Let me know what time's convenient for you, and then I would CC Priscilla and you and Sam and Justin and Sarah's board officers. Is that okay if I initiate the contact? Because it almost feels more too official to say, Priscilla, could you? Is that okay if we're being more personable, the way you are out in the field with our teachers and staff?
I like it. I don't know that I have an issue with that. Here's why those guardrails are in place in districts usually, is because not every trustee approaches things that way sometimes, and then the expectation is that the staff member is then responding to you, whereas they don't work for you. And there sometimes has to be a buffer between superintendent and staff, so that they have the ability to say, no, that's not gonna work for me that day, I can't do that. So that's why the guardrails are often in place in other districts. Again, we have a good board, and I'm not worried about that. I just, whatever y'all decide, just know that's the reason behind some of it, is that, and I've been in a district where that's played out.
So I would just worry about the flip side. If it wasn't a friendly trustee who is trying to dig up dirt in the library, I just think it's safer if we just go through them, and so that they get a heads up, and they might know some of the political dynamics going on that the principal might not know.
I would say though, if that's the route we want to go, the way that this is written only requires notice. It's sort of implied because it does say, after notifying the superintendent and principal about that it's time to visit, so there is some sort of interaction there that's envisioned, but the policy itself only requires notification. So if that's something we want to tighten up, maybe we look at, I don't know exactly where in policy this, I know this is also in policy, maybe we want to squeeze that language a little bit.
And I propose that we will leave it as is, if you don't mind scheduling with me for now, but then we'll bring whatever policy it is to governance to talk about that sometime this year, and we'll figure out how you want that okay?
letting me.
Can I ask something about the badges under that? I had made a note, I know we had conversations a couple months back about the badges and best practices for if you badge in, and some people were badging inside doors and maybe not checking in the office, or just with all the different ways we get into the building, should we put something in place that if you're to use your badge from any area, if it's on a campus, you should be checking in at the front desk? In some way, like, should we add something about a best practice for using the badge?
I think that's on there.
I think it, yeah, or it might be somewhere. If it's, the reason I wouldn't want to formalize it that much is there's lots of times where we're going to an event on a campus and like, there's just a pile of people at the door and it is easier for us to go, you know, there's the door right there that goes directly into the cafeteria where everybody's meeting. Like, we've done that, we do that quite a bit.
And plus, it doesn't look good if we like park the Red Sea to go up to the front when the crowd is clearly locked out until the official
But as a general matter,
opening.
you're saying like if you just outside of an event.
At
like you
1
go to a
o'clock on
I'm
campus-
a
just
Tuesday.
saying, as a general matter, if we're talking about setting up these appointments and doing all this, I think a step further is if we were to show up, you know, to David's point about someone maybe wanting to go to a library, if they just badge in the side door and come straight to that library, like, wouldn't we want to just say,
So-
if you're entering during the school
Yeah.
day, wave your badge,
Administration needs to be aware.
please
So
check in at.
It is covered, it does say you gotta advise the principal's office upon your arrival.
And that, so that would cover both guys, because if you're saying we're going in maybe the back door for a performance, the principal is gonna know we are coming because we have RSVP'd, we've done all that. But what you're saying makes sense, then if we are not there for a performance and you're just,
Because I'm reading A as a separate thing from the badge. I'm reading A like a
Oh,
visit that is scheduled like a tour, like a scheduled
Maybe
thing.
we do need a.
I'm thinking just if we're showing up, I don't know, if we're showing up to read, for example, and we badge in and just head straight to where we think we're going, like we know this teacher who's asked us I was asked to go read at Butler with some River Legacy animals, so I'm going. So I could, in theory, just badge in and walk straight to that classroom and not check in the office. So do we need to have it more like written out, or do we feel that all trustees going forward are gonna know that it's best practice to check in?
I mean,
in
it
the
does
office?
say advise the principal's office
Yeah.
upon your arrival, so I think there's if you have to let people know you're there, like you shouldn't just be rolling in and, yeah, David.
Okay.
Does it make sense for us to create another item for badge usage?
I just thought since we had so much conversation around badge usage,
I think we need one.
and is it necessary that maybe it has its own thing? I'm okay either way because I don't ever use that to go in. I can't even use it here if I don't have access. So.
I knew that comment was coming.
So, but I'm just, if.
maybe that's something that goes to governance. then,
Yeah,
to
maybe,
y'all discuss it
maybe
in
consider some more,
governance.
because I'm thinking of, like, there are sometimes things where we go to, for example, at the Arlington, like, when I've gone to Arlington High athletics events recently, like, we've gone directly to the MAC, and I've badged in at the MAC, and so, like, a rule that would say I have to go to the front office or something, like, I don't want to violate that by going to the MAC, so we'd just have to think about how to wordsmith it to where it's.
Yeah.
Covers those situations.
So I've made a note, governance can discuss the potential badge addition. Are you guys okay with moving forward for the sake of time?
Yes.
Yeah, let's.
So for
One
communi-
small comment real quick. The last time we asked for comments on updating this, I suggested removing the word fax from
Yes.
9A.
Yeah, that process.
Can we make that
We don't
same
fax.
suggestion?
We don't fax the
You know,
superintendent.
that's-
I was
that's
gonna
a
ask you if
global-
I could start using that. I don't understand. I'd like to try and do
Please
that.
don't fax.
Can I do need a clarification on 9C.
Yes.
It says the board will communicate with the community through public hearings. I understand that part. The communications department. So I want to know what that means.
I have no idea what that means.
The board will communicate with the community through public hearings, the communications department, presentations to PTAs, civic clubs, and other community groups, regular board meetings, and regular publications. So here I put trustee talks, because we need to add that. I take C as
When do we
all the
need
ways
this?
board members communicate with the community. And if we are just listing out every possible interaction, I think we should include trustee talks.
Well, when I go to the what's the Randy Hendricks thing on the west side?
We care.
We can.
We can.
We can, yeah. Like, I communicate with the community at that.
That's
I mean,
the
they have,
community group.
But is this meeting communications
I-
where they do their social
community
media and
groups.
marketing and all of that?
Maybe instead of the word hearings, maybe we just change that to public meetings, because that would include trustee talks. Hearings sounds a little formal. When I say the communications department, I read this and understood this as we would work, like if we have a board communication emphasis, like on, like when we did the raise, so somebody would run point and be like, hey, we would like
We-
communication to go out about the raise.
so we don't do our own communications. This is not us talking to our constituents. This is, we don't create our own publications. We don't create our own newsletter. I think that needs to be, if that's the intent of this, I think we need to be more explicit with the intent of,
And that's kind of what I wanted to clarify. It feels to me like what you just brought up, if there's something that the board wants to address and make sure it's communicated well, you would run that through me like any other request.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, we want to take that out, that's fine.
okay, yeah, I read
How
that
do you want it
differently.
reworded?
Just take it out.
We'll just take the communications department out of that.
Yeah.
All right, y'all, so we really need to get to close, so.
I know. Can I just say one more thing about
do
communication?
five.
real quick? Oh, 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes.
Okay. This is not specified in the communications bullet because it's more housekeeping, procedural, but I did want to elevate it just because it's been, like, I think years since we've talked about it. It was when Melody, when you were first president. It's been at least a year. So email communications, just a couple of housekeeping things to reiterate. So if you email Matt for any purpose, even if it's a quick question, we should we should CC the board president on all emails to the superintendent, all emails. If all of us get an email and we see each other in the to field, but not Matt, then it's also the board president's responsibility to forward it on to Matt if it's a matter that requires staff attention. If we don't know, so sometimes we all get BCC'd and I can't see if y'all got the same email. In that case, if it needs staff's attention, we can email it to Matt because I don't know if Justin got it, and that happens sometimes.
I would CC me on that, like, don't
Yeah.
send
Oh, yeah,
it to
that
me,
too.
don't depend on me to send it along, but like, that
Just
way I
CC
know
it.
it came in. It also helps us know, like, what was the breadth of reach on a particular email.
And we all, we're all very engaged. We all are really responsive. That's one of the things I love about our board. But just remember when we reply, whether it's through email or whether it's through conversation or whether it's through fax.
I'm excited about
We don't
that.
speak for other trustees. We don't speak for the board. We don't speak about how other board members stand on issues, et cetera. We can only speak for ourselves as individuals. So just a reminder there.
Just quick question from my point of view on it too, and it's entirely okay in the scenario you were bringing up. If a board member gets something, let's say it's to an individual board member, they can forward it to me for administration to address, but just copy you,
Yeah,
right? Okay. And then that way, if there's a follow-up, I'll copy the whole board if needed. If it's an individual off item, we wouldn't do that, but for the most part, I'd copy the whole board like that.
Yep.
Perfect.
Is there any way that we could close a loop? Because, and I'm gonna think of something specifically recently that I sent on to y'all, to the office. Okay, we've gotten it, and then 3 weeks later I hear from the community members, like, haven't heard a word from anyone. Is there not that we need to know what was happened, but how, is there any way to avoid so they know, yes, we passed it on, yes,
They're
this
included
is
in the follow-up, yeah.
The challenge is the volume.
right.
I'll just be honest with you.
Okay.
And I think I know which one you're talking about, and I think they're actually still working on it. And the challenge is just the volume of it. Again, as I mentioned in June, I'm willing to try anything, but I just need you to know the volume's not small.
I can't imagine.
Okay.
I really cannot imagine what Sam and y'all not put up with, but go through.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That was it. I
And
was just wondering how.
we'll keep working on, we've talked recently about loop closing, and we'll keep working. Just know that's on our minds too. We've got to make sure that you have right information to close things out. But I am a little worried right now. It's just volume.
No, please, thank you.
We, on on the last page, we are aiming for October for the superintendent evaluation, but this particular year, it looks like November, right, Matt?
Yeah,
But we're gonna try to stick to October.
yeah, I think the October timeline is totally fine with me. I think all of those things are fine. 2 points that I wanted to make on this, one under 11B1, the goals, so that's part of the discussion tonight. We're presenting to you just initial ideas and getting input on goals. The KPMs that you adopt would be the goals that we would have in my evaluation. So that makes sure that we're all on the same page and we report out on those on a regular basis. So we're in the middle of that process right now, which is good. But the board annually also has to adopt the evaluation instrument. So you have two choices as a board of trustees. You can use the commissioner's evaluation instrument for superintendents, or you have a locally adopted one, but annually then you have to adopt the actual evaluation instrument to use with the superintendent.
Wow.
So Sarah, why I bring that up is when you say it's, we're shooting for November, so we still have to adopt the evaluation instrument for me that we're gonna use. It'll have to go through a board meeting, and then I have to have a little bit of time to get whatever was adopted all together before we actually have the evaluation conference. So just know that timeline, we're behind right now. It just,
Yeah.
we need to,
Yeah.
we gotta,
We've always been behind every year I've been on the board.
and I told you, I'm not worried about this first one. So that, it doesn't bother me that we're missing that timeline. I need you to hear that. I think October makes total sense timeline-wise for
For the
a
handbook,
myriad
yeah.
of reasons. So.
Okay. Okay, y'all, I know we're at time. Is there anything burning, at the end of the board handbook that requires discussion? And we can always,
Can we come back to page 13 and 14, just because I do think those are
Yeah.
really detailed to things we do? And I would hate to rush it.
I would agree. I definitely want to talk about media and
Okay.
board role in media
I
and
think
stuff.
these two things can be put on another meeting, that we can handle this, so instead of rushing it.
that'd be up to y'all.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Yeah, and if it's gonna be quick, we don't have to do a workshop down here, we can do it from the dais.
Okay.
Trust us.
Okay.
All right, so at this time, we will recess and reconvene in the board chambers, beginning at 5:48. To close session pursuant to sections 551.071 through 551.084 and 551.089 of the Texas Government Code, in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act for the topics set forth on our agenda. We are now in recess.